There he was running towards me. Catching ourselves just in time, we slowed to a measured gait, each eyeing each other, weighing feeling against reason. As we approached our moment of truth, tears swelled up from the tension of holding within our breasts eons of longing for the beloved incarnate. Our eyes blazed with light. Out of our lips passed a suppressed sigh. Then peals of laughter quickened with a deep recognition, lightened our steps until we stood before one another face to face. I thrust the bouquet into his hand and, like a deer, almost bolted away. But he reached out and took me into his arms. Gently he cupped my face and stroked my cheeks, flushed and glistening with tears. Wow, it's almost just turned into an erotic novel, a spiritual erotic novel. Hi, and welcome back to Empowered Spirit Healing. Today we are continuing on with episode 5 of reading Anna, the grandmother of Jesus. I personally think chapter 8 was such an incredible chapter. It was just crazy to hear about how she was able to prolong her life for hundreds of years and basically stepped us through how she did it. So if you haven't watched that episode, go back and watch that. That was really fascinating. And then we read chapter 9, and now we're going to continue on with chapter 10 today. And chapter 10 is Anna's light conception initiation. So we're going to learn all about light conception. It's also known as Immaculate Conception. So this is what Mother Mary is known for, her Immaculate Conception. So we're going to understand how it all works and how it all happens, because it's actually not, I'm not sure what you've been taught with your religion or anything like that. I basically, as a child growing up as a Presbyterian, just kind of thought, well, God just magically made Mother Mary pregnant. That's just how it happened. And that's probably what most people have grown up to believe, just thinking that God just decided to make her pregnant and boom, she was magically pregnant without actually being with Joseph. But in this chapter, we are going to learn that it's actually quite a ritual and there's quite a process to having a light conception or an immaculate conception. So I think this is going to be another exciting chapter. And I'm so glad that you have joined me to continue reading this book, because I just love this book. I think it's so fascinating. So thank you for spending your time with me. And let's continue on with chapter 10. I have given you a rather lengthy overview of Joseph of Arimathea because he was to play a key role throughout most of the remainder of my life. Yes, Joseph of Arimathea is probably one of my favorite people, apart from Anna, of course. He just seems really cool. And I think I have a big soft spot for him because prior to reading this book, quite a few years ago, I read a book by Sylvia Brown about the two Marys, or it was about the life of Jesus. She's got two different books, and I would actually like to read them on my channel as well, because I think it's really important to explore different theories and different ideas about the life of Jesus, or any topic that you're interested in. I'm just particularly interested in Jesus's life and learning more about the women in his life, because as we're learning, the divine feminine is a very, very important part of our lives. And we have just been, ruled by a patriarchy for so long. And of course, men are so valuable and important, but so are women, and we need to be in balance. And then with the whole feminist movement, that's just really brought things out of balance. So I think it's just so important that we understand the importance of the masculine and the feminine and how they work together to create a beautiful harmony. So, yeah, getting back to how it's just interesting to read different stories. And so Sylvia Browne's story about Jesus is a little bit different to Anna's version, but there are a lot of similarities. And so Joseph of Arimathea is like the cool, rich uncle who helped the whole crucifixion take place and the pretending of him passing, I believe. I mean, that's what was told in the Sylvia Browne book. I can't remember all the details because it's probably about 8 years or so since I read it. So I'd have to refresh my memory. But I believe in that story, he was given some kind of a tonic or something that made him seem like he wasn't breathing anymore, but he actually was. It was just really, really shallow. And then he was given the antidote or something once he was put in the tomb. So yeah, but don't quote me on that because it's been a few years since I read it, but I would really love to read that. After I read this book, I'm going to read the sequel to this book, which is about the voices of the Magdalenes, and it's talking about different Essenes, different parts of the community. There are different members that want to share their story and share a message with everyone. So I really want to read that one after this. And then after that, I will probably read one of the Sylvia Browne books, either The Two Marys or The Life of Jesus. But yeah, anyways, I'm rambling. So it's just really cool to see the different ideas and different perspectives. So Joseph of Arimathea actually helps Jesus with the whole crucifixion and being in the tomb afterwards. The tomb was actually on his property. And then he actually helps him and Mary and other members to escape. And he helps to fund all of that. And it's just really, really interesting to hear the behind the scenes of the story, because in the Bible, where they just give us little snippets, and yeah, it's just very, very interesting. Anyways, I'm going to stop rambling and continue on. So now let us go back to the time of Joseph's 5th birthday, so when he was a little boy. Shortly after his father Matthias moved from Carmel to Qumran in late 53 BC. The rearing of Joseph and Martha was now my responsibility, and I devoted myself wholeheartedly to this task, knowing that I had the full support of the entire Essene community at Carmel. I welcomed these responsibilities with heartfelt gratitude and did not allow my feelings, for the most part, to become contaminated with grievance. When from time to time I reflected upon the loss of my husband, yet my loins had been opened and the flesh of my body given in marriage, awakened in my soul was an intense desire which I experienced as an unquenchable flame. This passion I had known before, particularly in Egypt. There I had learned how to channel this great energy up my spine and throughout my body. I consecrated my sexuality for cellular regeneration and spiritual enlightenment. So I had continued to use the life force of Sekhem through all my days. Even though I had been a handmaiden of Hathor and Isis, giving my energy to the enactment of mystical marriage with young initiates, both male and female, who came into the temples to be opened to high tantric alchemy. I was never married. I was married to the eternal beloved, who is one with source of my being. Yes. But did I know a man to whom I fully gave my heart? No. The nuptial bed had not been my choice. Yet here I was now as one adrift, for I had been opened to a world of feeling that before I had missed. I practiced all the wisdom I had gathered. I circulated this great force, transmuting my emotions, which seemed to gather as a mighty storm. The cresting tides of emotion would be calmed only to gather once again into tidal waves, breaking upon the shore of my heart and soul. Shaken indeed was I. as a few times in my long life. I asked to know the meaning of this great surge of the life force running rampant in every cell. How was I to deal with this intense energy and for what purpose? Though I occupied myself with every moment given to the tasks at hand, the days seemed to stretch long, and the few hours of my sleep were restless and feverish. I seemed to be burning with a love energy that was taking me into realms of feeling within my body that I had not known possible before. A great compassion filled my soul for those who had come to me in the past, consumed by these flames. Then I had dismissed the intensity of their experience and had sent them off to cool according to the ways I had known to accomplish quiescence in myself. Could they have felt as I was feeling now? If so, then I had been amiss in serving them. Nothing that had once calmed the tide of emotions and the flames that burned my heart and loins seemed to work for me now. I knew no one in our compound I could go to for advice. However, in keeping this immense energy secret within myself, I became increasingly aloof and distant. These were the very behaviours I had found difficult in Matthias. Instead of my usual patience and stillness, I found myself an irritable shrew, a side of my nature I had glimpsed only occasionally before. Well, I think a lot of us have been there. We have been very distracted with certain feelings that arise that are very human. I continued to oversee the probationary initiates of Carmel. I instructed the young maidens to know how to receive their flowing blood as an endowment of the Great Mother. I assisted the young men regarding the ways of honouring their manhood and the conservation of their seed. We observed sacred rituals and ceremonies that consecrated and graduated each novice to the status of a probationary initiate of the mysteries within the Essene order. Now that sexual life force energy was running rampant within me, I understood with compassion the energy that ran through the young blood of our community's growing number of adolescents. Then, one night, in a profound, life-transforming dream, Isis, Osiris, Hathor, and Horus took me to a receiving chamber where I had gone in the past to be initiated into the secrets of cellular regeneration. Here they told me that it was time for my physical body to be strengthened and prepared for the entry of highly evolved souls through the process of light conception. I was shown that I would become the mother of a girl to be called Mary, who would give birth to the promised Messiah. I slowly began to realize that from my womb, humanity would receive a great gift. As I contemplated the gift of motherhood opening up to me, I felt the wondrous presence of Isis, a mother of mothers. As my dream continued, Isis, Osiris, Hathor, and Horus beckoned me to lie upon a massive altar of luminescent pink crystal that was in the center of the chamber. It was carved round, and into the very center was placed a 6-point star, the seal of Solomon, made of molten gold, embedded with polished emeralds, sapphires, garnets, topaz, rubies, and diamonds. As I lay on the altar, I became aware of 12 great beings of light, each stepping into the chamber through a separate door. Some I recognized, others were new to me. These gathered around the altar to form an outer circle. Their right arms were raised towards me, while their left arms rested on the shoulder of their neighbor. This action focused their intent, and soon a cool, milky white mist began to gather all around the altar where I lay. Out of the mist, a pillar of light began to manifest, enveloping me at its core. At this point, Isis, Osiris, Hathor, and Horus took their positions around my body. Osiris stood at my head. Isis was at my feet. While Horus directed energy to my loins, Hathor placed her hands over my quickening heart. I was immediately immersed into an extraordinary geometric matrix of light, sound, and color. The music of the spheres enveloped me in pulsating, palpable patterns of liquid light. With light streaming from their hands and fingertips, the high-frequency energy quickened my organs, molecules, and atoms, opening my DNA to remember the codes required for conceiving children through the process known as light conception. One by one, 12 beautiful light beings appeared and took their places in front of me. I recognized one of these to be his Miriam. To each soul I etherically turned, embracing into myself the primordial cellular encoding that would be activated when it was time for their future conception to occur. Thus, each soul was anchored vibrationally into my womb before ever were they birthed through me into physical life. I now understood that I would be the mother of all 12. But how was I to do this without a man? I desired to understand. Oh my goodness, just imagine having this dream. You're being initiated by Isis, Osiris, Hathor, and Horus, and you are introduced to 12 different beings, and realize that you're going to be their mother and you're going to give birth to all 12 of them. I don't think I could give birth 12 times. I've done it 3 times, and that's enough for me. Whew. Then a vision was opened to me, and I saw a man coming to the Mount of Carmel. I recognized him as one I had met in the high Himalayas when I had knelt before the lotus feet of my beloved teacher, the Lord Maitreya, while visiting on the inner planes. When he came plainly into view, there was a smile of recognition as we ran into each other's arms. In this way, I came to know who would be the father of our 12 children before ever we met on the physical plane. As my vision ended, the supernal light withdrew into its own realm, and I suddenly felt my body lying upon its pallet into my room. Sweat poured forth, excluding a sweet fragrance from every pore. I lay fully spent, with no energy to rise up to my morning prayers and ritual washing. Thus, I chose to use this time to rest and integrate one of my life's most pivotal experiences. Unaware of the passing of time, my reverie ended when a soft knock at my cell door announced the concerned whisper of Judith, who had missed me. I aroused myself and bid her in. She looked upon me with eyes that were like great shining orbs. She, too, in a lucid dream, had witnessed what would become my profound role and increased responsibilities. Though she would not conceive children as I, she would be my conscious handmaiden to assist with the birth of all the children who would enter through me. So it was in those days that I was delivered into the hands of the Most High to accomplish that for which I had come and prepared. Whether you have had children or not, you can share my wonder and awe as I began to realize what an extraordinary blessing and empowerment was underway. Whether a man or a woman, you are presently preparing the womb of your heart to immaculately conceive and birth the Christ, your indwelling Messiah. I hope to encourage you to understand and embark with me into the mysteries of light conception, which are relevant in your life and coming destiny. Very interesting. I assure you that you have chosen to be on Mother Earth at this pivotal time so that you can consciously assist every cell of your body and every atom of matter to receive the very high frequencies of light entering the Earth's atmosphere, a kind of spiritual insemination. For some of you, this ascension process includes consciously conceiving highly evolved children in such a way that you, as mother or father, can resonate with their sensitive souls and assure a more harmonious entrance into the density of the earth plane. It is to assist you with this realization that I share a portion of my understanding in order to catalyze your remembrance and to illuminate your possible choice to join me by allowing this wondrous service to life. Many of the children being light conceived are adepts and ascended masters who are returning to participate in an unprecedented way with the great work of global ascension. Many of the new souls coming forth have never incarnated on planet Earth, and many of them have never experienced such physically dense bodies before. They are coming to serve as emissaries of pure love, and many are bringing much required transformational technologies to bring forth the golden age. All of these children are calling forth a conscious support team, as did my grandson, Yeshua, 2,000 years ago. They indeed also reflect your own inner golden child, who shall lead the way into a golden dawn. Whether conceiving children in the light or allowing the alchemy of light to transmute your body, emotions, and mind, I wish you to understand that the ascension process you are passing through is a light conception. As you and Mother Earth are being impregnated with light, you are serving the great work of spiritualizing matter, which assists humanity's ignorant, warlike resistance to unity and harmony to shift. While this occurs, the earth plane can hold more and more coherent, higher dimensional patterns of unity or Christ consciousness as you harmonize the accompanying chaotic birth pains. In this moment, you are simultaneously pregnant with the Christ light while giving its presence birth in your every action. It may be you choose to be a conscious parent, remembering how to literally conceive children in the highest frequency of light. It may be that you are a conscious midwife, spouse, relative, or friend, assisting coherent love energy to enfold mother and child during pregnancy, birth, and childhood. Whether you are participating in literal or figurative light conception, you are giving birth to the presence of the Christ in yourself, and you are assisting all life to remember the power of love. As you realize you are the Christ and an emissary of love, you can co-create harmonious, supportive environments in which highly conscious children may easily express and manifest the love they are here to share and demonstrate. Well, I really agree with that because I feel like generations have really changed. I mean, a lot of our grandparents grew up in quite harsh conditions and they were very children are to be seen and not heard. They're very tough. You have to get on with life, just toughen up and get on with it. But then, our parents, a lot of our parents have been more open to things like realizing that there are different mental issues in terms of depression and anxiety, and more open to talking to therapists, and so many people are more awake to healing and energy healing, and slowly, and I feel like we've gone from generations that just wouldn't even acknowledge what children are going through to parents that are slowly opening the door, to then parents from my generation where a lot of us are, I mean, I could definitely be a much better parent. We all could, but I am so consciously aware of my children's emotions and attending to their emotional needs and healing needs. And, I'll often do healing sessions on them, or I see my kinesiologist every month, and sometimes the sessions are done on them because kinesiology can be done like Reiki can be done whether you're with the person or, because you're just tapping into the spiritual field. So it doesn't matter where you're located. And I just love that people are so much more open to that now. So these new generation of kids that are coming in are, yes, there's issues of entitlement and being spoilt and being lazy. Of course, there's all that, but there are so many incredibly intelligent children that are being labeled as autistic or ADD. And no matter how you feel about that, whether you believe that label is relevant or not, it doesn't matter. The point is that these children are processing their thoughts in a different way. And by having parents that are more open to alternative ways of helping them learn and get through life and offer emotional support, we are changing the world by doing this, by helping our children and being more compassionate and talking about things instead of pushing everything under the rug, being open about going to therapy or seeing a healer. And even I know there's a lot of negatives to things like TikTok, but man, my girls have learned so much from TikTok. I mean, there's a lot of rubbish on there too, but kids are getting these little bite-sized bits of information that are opening up their minds to different things. And so I just feel like there's always a positive and negative to everything. And with social media especially, yes, there are a lot of negatives to social media, but there are a lot of positives too. And people don't have time to sit down and read a whole book or explore different psychological topics. We just don't have time for that because we're so under pressure to work and to make money and to just make ends meet. So having people, influencers, creating these beautiful little bite-sized bits of information for people to absorb quickly, we are becoming more awake from this. And yes, I know that it's not good to be on a screen all the time, and I don't encourage that at all. But I just think that it's because of the internet, it's because of social media. People are really waking up and expanding their minds and learning about different things and learning about all kinds of different things. And I just think that's really, really important for our new generation of children that are coming in because they definitely are different. I mean, I've spoken to so many people and people will be like, oh my gosh, my grandchild is just so alert, so awake. They're an old soul. They know things that I didn't even know. It's really incredible seeing this new generation that comes through. So it's really interesting to hear it from Anna's perspective. Although light conception is a complex and often misunderstood topic, I deeply desire that you begin to appreciate and value your choice to facilitate the conception and birthing of Christ consciousness during the coming years. I will remind you again, my dear friend, that it is primarily for the purpose of midwifing the birth of Christ or unity consciousness within all of life that I am sharing my story with you. My immense love and support are freely offered as you choose to awaken and realize your highest destiny every moment of this present lifetime. Chapter 11, The Meeting of Anna and Joachim. I apologize if I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly. but you're just going to have to put up with it, unfortunately. My beloved friend, I know the desire of the human heart for true love. All too often, the experience of love on the earth plane is frustrated, at best a shallow reflection of that for which one secretly yearns and knows is possible. I hear your soul's prayer for a mate with whom there is rapport on all levels, especially the spiritual, in which the fulfillment of your soul is to uplift life through your committed example of wholeness and unconditional love. As your soul evolves, an intense desire emerges to join your life with someone with whom there can be deeply realized divine destiny. Is such a love possible? Yes, my dear friend. When all is in readiness, and most often when you least expect it, the beloved comes forth in the physical form to mirror Creator's divine love. As you come more and more into an ever-present, intimate relationship with your own eternal beloved, as did I, you may also serve the evolution of life by attracting a soulmate with whom you perfectly mirror each other's internal mystical marriage of divine feminine and masculine. I will now share one of my most treasured memories of my experience when my beloved came into my life. As I recall, it was late in the summer season of the year 52 BC, according to your calendar, when Virgo was the sign of the heavens. I was walking at dawn in the midst of a garden plot, with the cloister of the sanctuary. It was near the dormitory of the women that I paused to listen to an inner sound. This sound was a soft, lilting trill of birdsong, and yet it was more like the sound of pipes. I wondered at its origin, for surely it was my inner ears that heard. I felt pulled by an irresistible urge to find the source of this haunting melody, which seemed to play upon the very strings of my heart. Quickly I finished the gathering of fruits and vegetables and took them to our communal storehouse. I kept the beckoning sounds to myself as I carefully washed the soil and sweat from my hands and face. I replaced the linens of my undergarments and prepared my body as if for the Sabbath. My heart continued to quicken while I placed the freshest of my robes upon my slender form. As I smoothed the finely woven Egyptian cotton over my breasts and hips, I felt an unusual awareness of my body. I carefully ran my Egyptian tortoise comb through my long, thick chestnut brown hair, which had bleached to a flaxen colour where it had been exposed to the summer's sun's blistering rays. I took perfumed oil into the palms of my hands and lightly massaged it into my waist-length tresses, which I plaited into a braid to be wound around my head. Because it was so unlike me to give my appearance so much attention, I wondered with increasing curiosity what was calling me. With one quick glance into my polished bronze mirror, I fled out of the cloister by way of the outermost gate. Through the pastures I ran. I darted like a doe among the small groves of nut, fruit, and shade trees, and the few remaining pines and cedars. Upwards I climbed to the mount, my heart pounding as if to take flight from its cage within my chest. Finally I stopped to gather myself. No one could I see except the shepherd boys far below me, and faint hints of those who moved within the outer walls of Carmel. Seawards there were those who were harvesting the wheat and the flax upon the valley's lower hills. Warm, balmy wind currents rushed upwards from the great sea, cooling my steamy skin and disheveling my carefully coiffed hair. All I could do was laugh at my ardent passion for the beloved, which brought me to the top of the mount empty-handed. I sank into the tinder dry grasses. Tears of longing mingled with laughter's sweet release. I lay down, my back against a smooth, warm stone. Soft grasses cushioned my head as I gazed into the cobalt blue sky, where swallows, hawks, grackles, and seabirds darted and soared. The sun waxed overhead, and still I heard the inner music so haunting and familiar that I was transfixed. I continued to lie there engulfed by soothing waves of bliss, fed with effulgent nectar. Slowly I dissolved into an ocean of flame, such burning, I was too drunk to stand. So the hours passed until I finally began to come to myself, still not knowing the purpose of my spontaneous excursion or the source of the heartfelt sound. When once I was able to rise to my feet, smoothing my skirts about me, I thought to myself, I must gather herbs, roots, and flowers. There must be some explanation for my going. So I began to pluck stems, leaves, berries, rose hips, and petals. Roots I dug until my outer skirt and shawl could hold no more. Then there were wild roses and a handful of summer lilies, which last of all were picked to place upon the altar. I was so engaged in my labours that I did not notice when the inner song became the same as the song that wafted upon the breeze. It was only when I stood up, my cornucopia harvest gathered, that I realised the lovely sounds I heard were coming from across the crest of the hill beyond me. Carefully I carried my treasure to the precipice and knelt amidst the boulders. Not far below, beneath the shade of a lonely cedar, was a robed minstrel. In turn, he played the lyre and pipes. So this was the music that had played upon my very heart, calling me to the mount. I gazed unashamedly while drinking in the melodies he sang and played. Then, as if sensing me, he turned his tanned, bearded face to scan the ridge above him. Our eyes locked in an internal embrace. Such joy! Here at last in physical form was the one I knew mirrored my soul in perfect wholeness. An unquenchable burning arose from somewhere deep within me to consume any remaining resistance I might have had to fully dissolving into the vast arms of the beloved on high. While fully aware of every sensation throbbing throughout my body, my soul again took free flight. As if attracted by a magnet so strong that nothing could keep us apart, I let go of my precious harvest, except for my handful of the season's last roses and lilies, and ran to the path that led to the lone ancient cedar below. Before I rounded the last outcrop of boulders, there he was running towards me. Catching ourselves just in time, we slowed to a measured gait, each eyeing each other, weighing feeling against reason. As we approached our moment of truth, tears swelled up from the tension of holding within our breasts eons of longing for the beloved incarnate. Our eyes blazed with light. Out of our lips passed a suppressed sigh. Then peals of laughter quickened with a deep recognition, lightened our steps until we stood before one another face to face. I thrust the bouquet into his hand and like a deer almost bolted away, but he reached out and took me into his arms. Gently he cupped my face and stroked my cheeks, flushed and glistening with tears. Wow, it's almost just turned into an erotic novel, a spiritual erotic novel. I hardly knew what to do with myself, feeling awkward and shy, not knowing what to say. I silently allowed myself to be with this man, who announced that he was known as Heli to his Persian brothers and Joachim to his brothers of Galilee. The sun haloed his face. His curled salt and pepper hair spun tendrils of midnight blue and silver. In that moment, he was a Greek sun god. It was as if Helios stood before me. For me, Joachim would never do. At that moment in my heart, he became Heliokim. After I introduced him, the Carmel community began to call him Joachim, as I came to do. My beloved towered above me, my head abreast of his heart. His shoulders were wide, his bearing strong. Lean was his form, contouring the bleached linen robe that he wore. His long, densely tangled hair denoted a Nazarite Jew, a group of ascetic Essenes who wandered the lands much as the sadhus of India live by the Mother's grace. His hair was parted in the middle, as worn by those of Galilee, yet his olive complexioned skin and dark almond-shaped oriental eyes told me he was also Persian. As we stood looking upon one another, reading our energy fields, I remembered the moment several months ago when I was lifted into the light realms with Isis and Osiris. My vision returned as I beheld before me the one who had knelt at the feet of the Christed Master, Maitreya. Then I knew who he was and realized that now was the time to bring the covenant of our one soul to fruition. At last, when I could catch my breath, my winged heart content to rest, I introduced myself. I noticed my voice softer and lower in pitch as usual, as I explained who I was and my station at Carmel. As if catching up on a very long history, like children reciting our lessons, we informed one another's inquisitive minds, while all the time feeling the undeniable testimony of our hearts singing familiar ancient rhythms. Our hands could not leave the other's clasp until we noticed the rays of the sun had passed behind the mount. The sound of a bell reverberated its call to the faithful to come to evening prayers and the communal supper table. Responsibility and a childlike eagerness to share the excitement of Joachim's arrival with my Carmel family moved us to gather our things we had laid aside during our rendezvous hour. During the uppermost slopes of Mount Carmel, we descended in joyful anticipation of Joachim's first meeting with Joseph and Martha. Those gathering around the long tables would soon see us washed and prepared for Joachim's formal introduction. So it was that my beloved and I entered the outer gate to bring our lives and destiny together within Carmel's sanctuary of peace. Now that I have shared my story about my meeting with Joachim, who was my soulmate as well as my twin soul and twin flame, I will briefly explain the nature of soulmate relationships, a very popular and misunderstood topic. Yes, it really is. Every soul has numerous soulmates, both physical and spiritual. You might think of soulmates as a huge extended family that lives on the earth plane and also in the realms of light. However, before external relationships with soulmates can be understood, it is vital to become intimate with your internal soul, with whom there is an internal bonding. Although I will elaborate on external relationships, I wish to emphasize the importance of establishing a loving and accepting relationship with yourself, your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects integrated into a wholeness of being. Some individuals mistakenly put their lives on hold, thinking they can only carry out their divine purpose with a spiritual partner. Some miss their appropriate soulmate because they cannot accept the human element that disguises the soul essence of their beloved. If you find yourself single or with a partner who is either spiritually asleep or awake, please know that your primary and most fulfilling soulmate relationship is with your beloved self. And I 100% agree with that. Soulmates, like divine complementary mirrors, perfectly reflect your consciousness in every moment. Sometimes the reflection may express as the opposite polarity from the one that you are consciously experiencing, but what you perceive is still mirroring your energy, which is expressing through the same resonance. You attract these experiences so that both of you can be conscious of your subconscious or shadow material. Then you have the opportunity to harmonize and balance the polarities within self, as well as those that emerge within the chemistry of your combined relationship. Soulmates are not limited to sexually intimate relationships. These can be relatives, teachers, friends, and even enemies. Always they come into your life and you into theirs at the perfect time when your soul desires accelerated growth and healing of separation consciousness. Because there is so much love between you on a soul level, your souls agree before you incarnate that you will find one another and you will play the most appropriate roles in your life's dramas. These relationships prepare each of you for your highest empowerment and destiny. Sometimes those roles are very loving and harmonious. Sometimes there can be extreme suffering. Nevertheless, the ultimate purpose of soulmate relationships is to enter into a divine relationship in which the self is first mirrored. Then, once clarified through forgiveness and compassionate love, the beloved, who has always been present, is revealed. Through self-knowledge and self-empowerment gained in a conscious relationship, each soul remembers how to be present for both self and the perceived other. The giving and receiving of love through all kinds of relationships becomes the greatest of eternally expanding gifts. One way or the other, your soul comes to understand there are no victims, no tyrants, and truly there is nothing to forgive. Yet, forgiveness is the key that opens a wounded and calloused heart to feeling the love that it has been missing and craving. Forgiving, compassionate love sees self and others in innocence. This love without limits is the open door that brings heaven to earth. I could go on and on about the empowerment that comes through conscious, sacred relationship with the whole of life, which, by the way, is constantly immersed in the free flow of divine sexual expression. Indeed, I have come to celebrate all life as sexual. Human sexuality, when it is consciously and compassionately expressed through an awakened heart, becomes a powerful spiritual path in which you may come to know yourself as the love, lover, and the beloved. Although this terrain of the heart, so often misunderstood, is near and dear to me, I will bring my discussion to a close. Meanwhile, let us turn inward and feel the gentle presence of the beloved with whom you are already eternally wed. So that's the end of chapter 11. I'm going to have to leave it there because it's been about an hour. So we will continue with chapter 12 next week, and that is titled Anna and Joachim's Children. So I would love to hear how you're finding the book so far. I think it's just really, really fascinating and an intriguing look into how they lived 2,000 years ago in the Essene community. And if you are interested in increasing your spirituality and your health, then I highly recommend you join Fusion Body Studio, which is an incredible online studio that I have developed along with my bestie in Atlanta. who is Bryce Watson, and she is an incredible yoga teacher. And she blends all of the ancient traditions and teachings of yoga and blends it with modern movement, such as barre, Pilates, dance, walking workouts, all kinds of stuff. She mixes it all together and it really is a lot of fun. They are really fun exercises that you can do from the comfort of your own home. And she has taught me so much about exercise. I have learned from her that exercise is actually the foundation of spirituality, which I never would have realized before. So I'm very grateful to Bryce. And Bryce and I also we do a live exercise class every month. We also have a live call with special guests. We've had the amazing Catherine Edwards. We've had Tamara. We've had Todd Roderick teaching us chanting, which has been amazing. We've had Cindy, who is also an amazing healer and yoga teacher. We've had some really amazing people on. We also have some incredible courses as well to help you with your self-empowerment, self-healing journey. And yeah, basically it's incredible, and you get a 7-day free trial. So if you would like to check it out, then please visit the website and all the links will be below. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 5, and I can't wait to continue reading to find out the next part of the story next week. Thanks. Bye.